coming out of my mouth. No. My neck grows.
Hello, I'm Fred Evans. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. If a person wants to purchase a gun without going through the background check process, it is now possible to avoid that by purchasing gun parts. Mariana Cordier, a local attorney, will tell us about this way of skirting local gun laws. There is an international coalition to get safe, healthy playing fields for our children and ourselves. Conway, a volunteer with a group that has been active for 6 years, will explain. There has been a bid to purchase Pepco recently. Linna Barnes, the associate producer of this show, will review what will change if the purchase occurs. Strathmore will be busy this summer with concerts and many other activities. Graciela Rivera-Oven is on the board and will tell us where we should be going in June, July, and August. Tell us about your story, please, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
Good that you're here.
This is about a story that came out in the Washington Post, then in California, and I imagine throughout the country. There's a way of buying parts for making, for instance, an AR-15. And
that is
it's a rifle. It's what was used in Connecticut and what was used in other shootings. And so the concern is, and the reason why, is that the receiver, which is the body, you can buy such that don't allow the gun to fire, right? But it can be modified, and then you put together all the parts, and then it can fire. And the thing about this is that the parts have no serial numbers, so they're untraceable. And you don't need a background check to buy these parts, and so you can buy them, put them together, and if you're a gun aficionado, for instance, you would be very familiar with this. If you're not, there's on the internet instructions on how to do it. Different people have different degrees of ability to do this, but they can put a gun together without having a license or background check.
Who thought of this marvelous idea? Let me guess.
Well, what was interesting about this story is, and it's focused in California because the ATF is trying to shut down particular stores that are like survivalist stores, that they sell all kinds of different things. And one of these things that they sell on the websites are these parts. And, with instruction manual or whatever, that they can put these things together. And so they're saying, the owner of the gun shop is, or the shop is saying, I don't have to report who I'm selling it to, and none of those regulations that require for purchasing guns or background checks and all of that doesn't trigger because it's not technically a firearm. So the ATF is saying, wait a minute, and local police enforcement, if they're investigating, they're finding these weapons, in crimes, and they don't have a serial number, that you can't trace them, there's no owner, there's no so it's a very problematic issue, because if you can't get a background check, you can't pass a background check, doesn't mean you can't get
I know, and that's what I remember from the story, that someone who didn't pass the background check and couldn't get one actually went and did purchased this rifle in that way,
right?
Or the parts,
right?
And then was part of a large scale shooting,
right? That's exactly right. I'm not exactly sure which of the shootings. I think it was the Colorado shooting where he had put together the parts.
Aurora?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. And the frightening thing is that we hear so much advocacy about background check, and NRA saying, well, we're not opposed to the background checks, but no one had really brought this portion of the loophole of the law up. And if you're trying to regulate firearms, and I'm not taking one side or the other. I don't want anyone gunning for me later. but the thing is if you're believing that by having background checks and requirements for getting a license and all this stuff, you have to take into consideration that there is this loophole in the federal law. It's not even just state law, but in the federal law, that allows for these receivers, and receivers for the uninitiated is the body of the guns. Right. It's the frame of the gun. So it's what you need to put everything in to make it put it together and to be able to fire it, discharge it. So the important thing to know is that perhaps that issue needs to be looked at, and the law needs to be tweaked to take possibly that issue into
Is it being addressed
consideration.
federally?
Well, they're trying to address it in the sense of challenging the store owner because, and there is one case where in California people were charged because if you and I don't know how to do it, to put it together and change it to modify it so you can fire, and we hire someone to do it, because they have to then be licensed and they have to make sure that they're giving a firearm that's going to discharge, which now is legally a firearm under the law, and so then you have to have the background check. It has a serial number. So in that sense, they are getting the folks and prosecuting the people who are engaged in saying, "Oh, don't do it. Pay me, and I'll do it for you." You can't do that.
Is
But
Maryland
I can
law
do it on
ahead
my
of
own.
Federal law or behind federal law?
Well,
You know?
no, federal law applies across the country,
Right.
and the states can pass laws that
Or
come
more
up
aggressive.
to. No, they cannot go beyond federal law. Because it's a constitutional issue.
And that was going to
a
be
federal issue.
that was
The
going to
amendment,
be
Second Amendment.
yeah.
The Second Amendment.
That's what's going to be my comment was. So even after the Colorado shooting and the Connecticut shooting, they haven't been able to pass laws to actually address gun violence. So now having this loophole, what makes us think that they're
One
going to
of
be
many
able,
loopholes.
right?
Just
makes us
increases
think-
the process.
It just increases, the issue of more.
And I know you get mad at me when I say this, but at the end,
I don't know. Go ahead and say
Uh-oh.
it. Go ahead and
Let's-
say it.
let's be
Good thing we're
careful.
like,
Let's be
Let me
far
say
apart.
this though: whether this loophole existed, there is a black market for guns as well, and people can buy
Oh,
them. So
absolutely.
there is no guarantee that if
Right.
you had the perfect law in place, that violence would not occur.
But-
So I think the strategy here, though, I believe in is we want it licensed, we want it regulated, and if this loophole creates such a wide open hole where you don't need a background check or licensing and they're not registered and everything else, that needs to be taken care of. But I don't think of looking at it from the perspective that it's going to stop violence.
I-
Because that I don't
I
think will
think
happen.
that we are going to have to take this issue on as a single issue because, in my opinion, this is not going to go away
No.
just by this simple. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for welcoming me.
And
so my
tell
name
us
is
about-
Diana Conway,
yes.
and I'm with a group called the Safe Healthy Playing Fields Coalition. And what we are about is trying to prevent the additional installation of artificial turf fields, which are made out of 60 to 100,000 shredded tires. If you put a tire in the trash, you can be cited for improper disposal of toxic waste. If you shred them up and put kids on it, you can charge $1 million per field, which is what Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery County Parks are paying for each of these fields. They have known carcinogens, known endocrine disruptors. The endocrine system is the reproductive system, and they are not regulated as a children's product. So all these teenagers and children whose reproductive system is still under construction are in the process of being exposed in an unstudied, indefinite way to this product, and there is no scientific research.
Does this include the turfs that are not the shredded but the flat?
The cork?
Yeah, it looks kind of like a cork, soft.
There are
Concrete,
There are a
but-
couple companies that are trying very hard to find a non-toxic alternative. One is cork. I'm not sure what the other alternatives are. I don't think anybody has made a big break into the market, but the artificial turf field has been a huge marketing success, and they're all up and down the East Coast, the West Coast, Canada, Europe. The Europeans are very opposed to them. The Canadians are very opposed to them. The Americans are very mixed bag. In California,
Now,
there are a lot of
how many do we have in the Montgomery County Public Schools?
well, in Montgomery County Public Schools,
roughly.
we've got Richard Montgomery, Walter Johnson, Wooten, and Churchill High School is next on the list.
How about the New
Well, and I think-
Gaithersburg? Is that?
I'm not sure about that, but I should know that. But I can look it up for you.
No,
But
it's all right. It's all right.
more important is the fact that everybody wants to be at the ribbon cutting. It's a beautiful, pretty green field. You get to play on it, no problems. Everybody's excited. But nobody's going to be around in 5, 10, 20 years. It's just like cigarettes or asbestos or
Well-
DES. No, who's going to take care of the liability issues when all these chemicals either go into our kids' lungs or go into the river and kill all the water? We already have such water pollution. These are tiny, they're the size of fish eggs, 60 to 100,000 shredded tires. You know, if your kids aren't inhaling it on a hot day, it's getting washed down with every rain into the next creek.
It's just so interesting because I can see, I can see the appeal of it. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful, it's green.
And you don't have to cut it.
And you don't have to cut it. But I certainly have heard, in professional football, talk of,
They
well,
don't
we
like
don't like the artificial fields. We
Yeah.
only want to
They
play
have
on the grass fields.
They have a higher injury rate for certain kinds of injuries. They also have, I mean, they say, oh, they're maintenance free. They're not maintenance free. You have to buy a special grooming machine, which is like a big Zamboni, but it basically has to come along and redistribute all the little bits. You also have to sterilize them because unlike dirt, which will break down sweat, blood, snot, animal feces.
Thank you.
These fields
Yeah.
do not break
No,
it
that
down
makes
because
sense.
they're plastic,
Makes
so
sense.
they have to be sterilized.
Yeah,
so when
could I just interrupt one
Sure.
second? Could you give us your website?
Of course, thank you. It's www. and then all one word, safehealthyplayingfields. Plural, safehealthyplayingfields.org.
Okay.
And we've got a ton of studies from peer-reviewed, published studies, unlike what is being put out by the industry.
Well, it's interesting because when this came out, everybody was so gung-ho about it.
Yeah.
And they were so happy because there's no maintenance to it and it's great and to play on it. But there's been studies also of the overheating of these fields, which is, and then you have children who have issues with asthma. We have, and other allergens and so on. So I'm wondering if this is one of those things where right now we think it's the greatest thing, and in 20 years when the studies come out, they're going to be like,
That's exactly right.
if it's in your lungs, you probably,
You're
this is what
exactly
causes
right.
your
That's where it came
cancer.
from.
Exactly.
The analogy
So-
with cigarettes may not be a perfect analogy,
Right.
but it's not a bad analogy. because when-
Asbestos, cigarettes,
Oh,
DES,
no
the
question.
anti-nausea
But
drug,
I think
it
as
takes a long
parents,
time.
as a parent of a child who plays baseball and so on, and plays soccer, I have to tell you, in my family, soccer is a big deal. They prefer to play on grass. I mean,
good.
natural. I mean, there's a
have
reason
good
why we
instincts.
have grass.
Yeah.
So let's
Also-
spend our money on maintaining our fields.
Well, that's the
with
thing.
grass, then.
Natural turf, if it were maintained. The guy who ran the Soccerplex for 5 or more years, Jared Minnick, has said repeatedly that his 19 natural turf fields were much easier and cheaper to maintain than the 3 artificial turf fields he had. But everybody seemed to want to play on the artificial turf because
It's
they
the
thought it
cool
was
thing.
better. They wouldn't let the kids play on them during the summer because they got so hot. 90-degree weather, 150 degrees.
Okay, well, this will be another topic, I'm sure.
I'll be
Very,
back.
very, very, very important topic, and I encourage all our listeners to pay attention to it. We'll be back after these messages. Linna, you're going to tell us all about Pepco.
Exactly. Well, I think everyone realized that in April, Exelon, which is a large provider of energy, electricity, put a bid in to purchase Pepco for cash for billions of dollars.
Right.
Because they've decided that they want to get back into the regulated providers of electricity, the ones that provide consumer electricity. So Pepco now has a bid for it out there.
What does that mean for us as citizens?
Hard to say. I mean, obviously, one of the issues is, will we have better service?
Are
That's
they
what-
local, Exelon? Or where are they from?
No, Exelon is from Chicago.
Oh.
They are a really large, a large group.
And it's Exelon, not Exxon. Right?
Exactly, Exelon. They, 10 years ago, the providing of energy was all deregulated. So what many companies went out and did was sell off the plants they had. Pepco had lots of plants that produced energy. They sold all their plants. So now all they do is provide energy to you, me, Montgomery County,
Transmission
the
lines.
district, the transmission lines, and they purchase their electricity from providers, wholesale providers of electricity. Exelon is one of those. They have nuclear plants, coal-fired plants, gas-fired plants. But what people didn't realize 10 years ago when this split occurred was that the price of electricity would decrease so much There's all this cheap gas out there. So
Wait. My
Cheap
my
gas.
my bill.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Pepco bill says
And
no, it ain't so cheap.
Well, they're not.
So
they're not
who-
reducing their rates. Those go when they are able to purchase very inexpensive electricity produced by natural gas. Some of the profit goes to the shareholders. I mean, it's just the way it goes. They have the rates
And to
regulated.
salaries.
I think
salaries.
we need regulation. No.
We have, but the salaries. I mean, not the salaries. The costs are all regulated by say the district government, the Maryland. Commission,
PSC,
yeah.
PSC,
PSC.
Public Service Commission. So those rates are regulated, and that's what we pay. So Exelon, our rates are not going to change. A rate increase just went in. That's not going to change if Exelon purchased Pepco. The rates, they'll make the same case at Pepco in some number of years that Pepco would have made that we need an increase. But they have purchased Baltimore Gas and Electric, BG&E. That was a couple of years ago. And there, the residents that had that service, they got a $100 rebate every house or every account. Plus, they set up a very large account in the multi-million dollars for low-income assistance, for providing upgrades and things like that. So that was one of the real positives in the Baltimore area when this purchase occurred. So that could certainly happen and probably would happen again.
Well, is the $100 just sort of a goodwill gesture to say, we know you don't know us and you used to BG&E, or is it saying BG&E was charging you too much, here's some of it back?
It's more goodwill gesture,
And it was one time only,
One
correct?
time
Yeah,
only.
one time
And they've
only.
talked about $50 if they go through with the Pepco purchase, that they would be giving people
I'd like
$50.
100.
You'd like 100? Now
I'd
you're
like
gonna
100.
now you're going to be lobbying for that 100. But they
I
have
would like the 100 a month.
interestingly. Actually, the
really.
reason why they set up the fund, the low income fund, was because that was required by the Maryland Public Service Commission as part of the purchase. They required that they set up this. I think it was $300 million,
Yes.
but I'm not sure the exact numbers. But they
And is that a renewing fund, or is that a
no,
one-time
that
fund?
was a one-time that they paid into.
That doesn't
So-
work really very well for low-income people.
Well,
they don't stop being
It works for
low-income after the first
it
year.
works for a little bit.
It works for a little bit,
Right,
But
that's
it
how they
also
see
shows
it.
their commitment to that, and it could be that Pepco does have low-income providers. I mean, not providers, low-income services
Right.
now that they provide,
Yeah.
that they give discounts or they work with
And they're
Will
pretty good
this
at
new
services.
will this new company organization help with the care and taking
the
care
maintenance
of
question.
maintenance?
Just
Well,
a small
Because that's
detail.
a big issue.
Well, Pepco clearly has a very bad rep after the derecho,
And we
all the
All those
storms,
storms, yeah.
all those storms for the past 3 years. Sandy, they were okay, the most recent one, but before that they were pretty bad, and they've done a lot of maintenance. They deferred maintenance for years. They have a really low rating. Exelon's rating in terms of its maintenance is not as low as Pepco's, but it's certainly not the first.
Well, okay,
We
the
just
Pepco's
have
in
to
the
wind-
bottom
we have
quarter.
about 10
And as far
seconds.
as I know, they have they've been chopping down trees like nobody's business. I'm not sure that's the solution.
That's their maintenance solution. So
Well,
we'll see
thank you for
if Exelon
presenting
does
it.
better.
And another non-controversial issue. But let's move to the arts.
Mine is fun.
Let's move to the arts. Let's move to dance and singing and enjoyment. Gracie, tell us
Yes,
about
well,
Strathmore.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I have the great honor of being on the board of Strathmore and been involved with them for many, many years, even before the concert hall was a reality. It's a great place. If
fantastic.
you have not been to Strathmore, I don't know what you're waiting for. There's just so much, including at the mansion when you have art exhibits, and there's so many things for kids to do, classes over the summer and so on. We're home also to the Baltimore Symphony, and it's just a great place for
The
the
National
arts.
Philharmonic Orchestra.
Absolutely, it's a great jewel that I think Montgomery County has, and it was just an idea over 10 years ago, and under the leadership of Doug Duncan, it became a reality, and the 10-year anniversary is coming up
And Elliot
next
Fast
year.
too.
And Elliot, absolutely. Elliot is the soul of Strathmore. He's still he's still, involved in it, and so it's such an honor to be part of that group of people.
What are some of the programs?
Well, let me
this
tell
summer?
you, we just had our gala, and it was a great success, and everything that comes from the gala goes into the education fund. So we have, every year, we have these great, the kids from the Montgomery County Public Schools, first graders, and then when they are fifth graders
Right.
come, every single one of them comes to Strathmore every year.
My daughters love it.
Absolutely, and my kids loved it as well.
And I think you recently had an event for the Washington Rebels, which was a huge blowout success.
Yes, it was. Coming up is Neil Sedaka and John Prynes, and just great people.
Sedaka's still
So
around.
yeah, yes, my mom is going to see. That's her Mother's Day gift, and she's excited as can be.
Right.
But also over the summer, so our season ends at the end of. It's going to end at the end of June. There's a great samba project starting at the end of May at the mansion and so on. And there's a lot of free concerts and so on for the family to come and enjoy. So that's going to be great fun. And then over the summer, there's going to be a food festival. There's going to be a lot of local chefs and international chefs and good music. And
Is that in
then
the main mansion or in the Strathmore Arts Hall?
it's actually, no, that's going to be an outdoor. It's going to be an
Oh,
outdoor
nice.
kind of festival. That's going to be great fun. But then also the last Wednesday of June, we start our summer concerts.
Right.
Where the families bring their picnics and so on, and there's going to be a great lineup of artists and local bands and so on. That
So that's great. There used to be movies there, but now you're turning it into
yeah,
concerts.
the public wanted more music. They wanted that
makes sense.
Exactly where they could come and where the music could be for the whole family, and some people say, well, Wednesday's not such a great night. Actually, Wednesdays is really a good night. People come after work, they get ready for it, they bring their their picnic, and they just bring their kids, and
What's the time frame?
it's the concerts they start at 6 p.m. So you can park at the Metro. It's $5 for parking at the Metro, and then you just walk over the bridge, and then you're there. And then we're going to have a great fall coming up, and Frankie Valli is.
Oh my, that's from my day.
I know. Well, I'm sorry. I like the
Neil
music
Sedaka.
as well.
I would sing, but I can't. They're all going through
Well,
my mind.
it doesn't matter with
I
Frankie
can
Valli.
sing, but no
Anybody
one
can
wants me to.
sing, right? But,
Oh.
but the beauty about Strathmore is that you can have the classical and you can have the 50s.
That's right.
You can have tango and you can have samba, and you can, for our gala we had Julio Iglesias, and Julio Iglesias is,
It was a great concert, And when I went, I thought, yeah, it's been so long, and he's so much older, but he sang like as if he
it was
were
a magical
30
night.
years ago, and,
Oh, yeah.
it
Wow.
was fantastic. And what was so great was that most of the concert, the songs were in Spanish, and half the crowd, maybe understood, the other not, and everyone
matter.
was so engaged.
Right,
It did
right.
not matter. It was
I have to
fantastic.
say, I saw Chuck Berry
Oh, I was there too
couple-
when Chuck Berry was
a couple
there.
years ago,
What a
and
great
one of my
concert.
former students was the pianist, Daryl Davis, who's a phenomenal
nice.
Absolutely.
jazz pianist.
I didn't know he was your student.
Oh,
And you didn't get called on stage?
No, not for that one, but it was fantastic. And Chuck Berry was in his 80s and still doing duck.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Well,
So,
it sounds wonderful. Again,
and it's all here in your backyard.
right.
Exactly,
Right? And
exactly.
it's a nonprofit. So
And
it's
easy
it's,
parking.
Absolutely. So
And
I
Metro.
really want families to bring their kids. The mansion's always free. You can go. There's always great art exhibits. It's a great time to have with your family and friends. So check us out. Go to our website, strathmore.org.
That's good. That's good. Well, that sounds like a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I want to thank all of you for just a great show, very engaging, and a lot of some tough issues, but issues that we're going to be dealing with in the future. And I want to thank all of you for joining me this week, and thank you for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Fred Evans. Please join us next week at this same time. Thank you.